This was one of the darkest periods in the history of Qin State, with two emperors meeting a tragic end and a prince forced into exile. Meanwhile, the power of Qin State was constantly declining, with territories falling one by one. This video takes you on a journey through the difficult and painful past of Qin State. In 443 BC, it has been established founded for 327 years. Duke Wu of Wei asked his father, i.e. the previous ruler, to die and have his son take over as the next ruler. However, since historical records of Qin State from the early Warring States period are scarce, therefore during his reign there are only two recorded events in historical books. In year 2 of Duke Wu's rule, southern Jiangxing rebelled, and Qin State lost control of the Hanzhou region. In year 13 of Duke Wu's rule, the Yi people from the north launched a large-scale invasion and reached as far as the Wei River. His habits also show that during his reign, the state policies kept changing frequently, seriously affecting the daily lives of common people. In 429 BC, Duke Wu of Qin died. What's more surprising is that after him, the new ruler was not his son, but rather his younger brother, Duke Ying of Qin. The true reasons behind this are now unknowable. However, perhaps we can find a clue from Duke Ying himself. Just 4 years into his reign, Qin State experienced a coup d'etat. The Shangyang faction joined with the other ministers and besieged Duke Ying, who in desperation was forced to take his own life. After the coup, since Duke Ying's crown prince had died prematurely, the ministers then enthroned his grandson, Duke Exo of Qin, as the new ruler. At this time, it can be said that the actual ruler of Qin was not the king himself, but rather the old aristocrat. It was precisely because of their incessant interference that led to the Qin State's government being turbulent and unstable. The country powerfully declined, leading to the envy of the neighboring states. However, this neighbor was no longer Jin, but rather the newly emerging and rising state of Wei, with its current ruler being Duke Wu Hao. As one of the most wise and virtuous rulers in West history, Duke Wu Hu of Wei favored and cultivated talent. Notably, he selected the capable and implemented reforms, thus marking the beginning of the Grand Reform era in the Warring States period. In the following section, I will briefly introduce Wei's reform policy under the leadership of Shen Biai. First of all, in the political sphere, Shen Biai introduced measures to promote and utilize talents from humble backgrounds, such as Yang Bingjie. In addition, Shen Biai abolished the hereditary aristocracy's right to govern their own domain. They could no longer exercise judicial authority or maintain private armies within their own fief. However, they were still able to enjoy the taxation benefits of their fiefs, which was equivalent to their domains being converted into real property. Economically, Qian Bohe also implemented a land-based agricultural policy, known as tilting the lands by its size, which meant that the amount of land cultivated would be proportional to the amount of labor. Not a single plot could be wasted, and special agricultural officials were established to guide farmers in their cultivation. As a result, the grain output quickly increased. However, there was a strange phenomenon in the grain market, where stocks stored by farmers were expensive and favored among nobles, whereas storehouses of merchants were cheap. If there was an abundance of grain, prices would be low, and farmers' income would be low. On the other hand, if grain was scarce, ordinary people would be affected as well. Therefore, Shen Biai implemented a price regulation policy. When harvesting, the government would purchase surplus grain from farmers at market price and deposit it into the state treasury, controlling the overall grain stock in the market and maintaining a reasonable supply. In times of harvest failure, when the market grain is insufficient and prices rise, the government would intervene by releasing grain onto the market, stabilizing the grain price. Additionally, in order to ensure the smooth implementation of these reform measures, Shen Biai implemented a system based on rule of law and created China's first comprehensive written code of laws, known as the Shujin. With this set of reforms, the state of Wei rose rapidly like a gaming millionaire with great power as its backing. The state of Wei then embarked on a large-scale agenda of expansion and conquest outside of its borders. And who would be the most direct victim? Not hard to guess, it's the poor Qin State. Again, in Qin Gong's 6th year, 419 BC, a Wei auxiliary force crossed the Yellow River and occupied the city of Shoulan. They're also building military fortresses here. Wei's move was clearly making Shuang a base of operations for their attack on Qin. Please feel free to subscribe Forward and Roar, Amir Column and Shrine Column for their intense rivalry over Xiaoyang. Unfortunately, the Qin military ultimately did not emerge victorious. Xiang said he still belonged to Wei, but Qin didn't give up on it. They built Zishu and Pingsheng fortifications in the north of Shuyan City with the intention of repelling Wei troops from both sides. However, before these fortifications were even completed, Lord Qin Shengong passed away after a 10-year reign. He developed a preference for occultism and the supernatural in his later years. This is not a compliment to his shrewdness and wisdom. During his reign, the proper interpretation of Lord Qin should be that it means causing great turmoil and chaos in the country. This can be said as one of the worst and most disastrous events in Qin's history, making him the weakest among all its monarchs. Additionally, since he passed away at a relatively young age, his heir was only 9 years old and had no political power whatsoever. Thus, the old aristocratic forces in Qin decided against him becoming king, and instead of Shenggong's uncle's rule, another son of Lord Huidozi became the king, and this is Qin Shenggong. The young Prince Lian was forced to flee to Wei to seek refuge. Now, the mess that Qin has become is handed over to Prince Shen. Let's take a look at how he handles it. In the 3rd year of Duke Cheng, I of Qin, 412 BC, the Lord of Wei Duke Wen sent Prince Hugen to occupy Fang Song in the state of Qin. 3 years later, the Whig army pushed further west and built 2 city fortifications near Liangge. The commander who led this campaign was Mira a man notorious for being the nightmare machine of QI. In his battles with Qin, Wu Qi employed a gradual erosion strategy. Instead of advancing further, he built fortresses as strategic footholds and holding position. After building the fortifications, Wu Qi then marched forward with an attack, eventually conquering and incorporating the entire Hex region into West territory. Wei Wenhe set up the area as Western River County Estebo and appointed Wu Qi as its first magistrate. At this time, the Qin army was forced back behind the Lu River and had only one line of defenses to hold along that river. They also rebuilt the old Long City to ward off the destructive blows from the Wei army's further westward advance. After gaining control of the Western River region, Wei Wenhe not only implemented his political and administrative reforms in that area, but also dispatched philosophers Zhou students such as Zixia to teach and spread Confucian classics in that region. And thus the school of thought known as the Western culture emerged. Meanwhile, Wu Qi also took measures to prevent Qin's counterattack. During his tenure as magistrate of Western River County, he reformed the military system and he trained China's first elite special forces unit known as the Wuyi Regiment. During the spring and autumn period, going to war was something exclusive to nobles who rode around on expensive four-horse chariots in battle. Don't forget to subscribe and share. Every noble or commoner back then was an amateur soldier with precious little time for military training. Take Qin State as an example. Its militaries were mostly made up of farmers who farmed in peace and took up arms in war. Their equipment was also quite primitive, but varied across the 5 tribes. According to Zixia's military discourse, the powerful state was rich enough to field a full-time professional military. Don't forget to subscribe, and share. And with that, the people of Wei State eagerly joined the military in large numbers. To improve soldiers' quality, Qin decided to recruit 50,000 people and established a selection standard for the first time. Those who applied had to put on heavy armor within half a day. They had to carry 2 strings of a powerful compound bow that could be drawn in half an instant, 50 arrows, hold a long pole with which they would defend themselves, and had their quivers on their back. And finally walk 100 miles carrying everything for 3 days. It was precisely these stringent standards and rigorous training, combined with the generous rewards that led to the formation of the elite Weikio tribe, which gave the state a tremendous advantage in battle and enabled it to hold its position as one of the top powers during the warring states. Period. In subsequent years, King Wen of Wei personally wiped out the country of Zhangchun and inflicted a crushing defeat on Qi, striking fear into the hearts of all with it. Year 403 BCE, the Zhou Emperor formally enfranchised the 3 as lords, namely Han, Zhou, and Wei. The official recognition that was long overdue finally arrived, but by then Jin had been reduced to just 2 city-states. Subtitles, volunteers, Li Chou Sangsheng, please go see his son Qin Honi as the new king. Due to the fact that during the spring and autumn period, there had already been a Qin Wulu, Duke of Qin, and Qin in the state. In order to better distinguish them, the later one was also known as Duke Honi of Qin, with posterior benevolent Duke of Qin. Year 5 of Qin Yan's reign, 395 BCE, Qin country had western conquerings of Menganago nation at the same time as Duke Wen of Wei died. Don't forget to subscribe, and share, and support Ming Jing and Dis columns with the thought of retaking West River in mind. They launched a counterattack across Fallen River. However, it was soon driven back by Wu Qi and directly seen as an attack on the West River of Wu. The Qin army then changed their strategy, clearing out Wei forces in the western outskirts. Year 10 of Qin Yan's reign, 390 BCE, the Qin country attacked 5 cities of Wei State, but unfortunately, Duke Qin was furious. Determined to settle the score with Wei State, he decided to wage a full-scale war against them, just in his 2nd year after the Battle of 5 Cities. Grand Duke Qin launched a massive army of 50 million, with the Weibu tribe's 5,000 strongest warriors in the land of Yingzhou. According to the records of Wei, although the Qin army had a massive number of soldiers, their troops were lacking in terms of training, tactics, and wealth compared to the Wei camp, even if they brought all hands on deck. Two years later, Qin army launched another attack. However, this time the opponent was no longer Wei State because it would really be knocked out. They focused their target on the long-lost Hasti region, and this time, they did succeed. Also that year, Wu Qi left Wei State and directly jumped into Chu Nation, and this jump was not voluntary. As the old saying goes, a bird that gets shot often comes out. Weapons are brilliant on the battlefield, overwhelming and crushing their enemies in every direction. However, on the political battlefield, it's a completely different story, a dismal defeat, repeatedly outmaneuvered and sabotaged by opponent. When he left Western Henan, he sighed, if only the ruler had trusted me, I would have needed just a few more years. Don't forget to subscribe and share and support Ming Jing in these columns. The day when the Western region falls back into Qin hands is probably drawing near. Again, and Wei State will also meet its downfall. Because of this, he said these words with tears in his eye. Later that same year, Grand Duke Qin Hui passed away and was succeeded by his son, Prince Qin. When Qin Exa inherited the throne as a child, allegedly around 2-year-old, and some records say 3 years old. In any case, power ultimately fell into the hands of the mother known in history as Small Lordess or Lady Dx, and would be fitting translations. This is a literal translation of the Luxichon records that at the time, Lady Xing's use of eunuch was very unpopular among her officials. The common people also had a lot of grievances and were critical of the ruler. Considering this situation, the original Crown Prince of Qin, who fled Wei for nearly 30 years, felt that the time had come to retake his rightful throne, and he returned to Qixia in the state, eventually seizing back the throne that was rightfully his. And this Prince Yuan also had another name called Yingxia, who is now well known as the founder of the first Qin Empire, having ended the 4th century turmoil in Qin State's rule. Please like and subscribe, share, and reward my channel for supporting Ming Jing columns. After becoming emperor, how did he manage to turn around the fortunes of Qin? Please watch and follow this video. Continue watching the historical development of the first Qin Empire on this map.